Okay. Good evening to everybody, and thanks for this nice introduction. But before that, I'm happy that I have been invited here, but I'm a little scared because neither I'm a physicist or psychologist, nor Buddhist philosopher, but the topic is, real interest to me, like probably many others. But I do understand a little bit of neuroscience. And what I would be talking about here, I stand before you with all humility so that I can learn a lot and try to explain what it is. Individuality, certainly I would not be able to understand. But non-locality, I first heard the term from sitting here, Dr. Mukhopadhyay. So I work on neural mechanism, brain mechanism of REM sleep regulation as a neurobiologist. So there I faced problem to explain. So in the book of REM sleep regulation from Cambridge, when we were writing, I happened to be my book, I wanted to write that from the philosophy point of view, what it is. There, my dear friend, because when I was doing PhD, he was about a year or two senior to me, so I knew him very well, and I knew he reads philosophy and Vedic philosophy, Upanishads. So I told him to help me out what it is, because I didn't have time to so much. So I read something, and based on that I explained. So if anybody is interested, I have written a little elaborately in the third chapter in this book from Cambridge. Nonetheless, let me try to understand and explain what I mean here in the next 20 minutes. I understand there will be a lot of questions when I keep speaking. But in the interest of time, and probably a lot of my ignorance, I will request you to kindly hold on. If there is any question-answer session and time, we can. If not, I'll be available even after that. So with this, the title I had given, Understanding of so-called Exploring Substrate of Consciousness. And that is from the point of view, the so-called REM sleep. I will introduce to you next. So let us see, why do we understand, why do we need it? There's some. So here, when the life evolved, the way I understand, ultimately the humans evolved. Even if it's at the individual level, prior to civilization, one would think of self alone, if at all one understood what is self. Sharing was without much pre-planned, not for future. Now one can explain the way I understand, even for self, there is, the moment we say self, there is some non-self as well. So for explanation, there has to be explanation for self as well. We can talk about that, and that is why neurons have evolved, because that digitizes the analog signal. And that is how even I explain in many other terms, but we do not have time right now. So, with the advancement of knowledge, humans started consciously, the word started being consciously here, sharing and actively pursuing practices for mutual benefit and sustained progress. That is how we started there. So once it does, then the term comes, this consciousness. When this term comes, the state of being aware and responsive to one's surroundings. The fact of awareness by the mind, then the word comes again, mind. So all these are terms the way one understands. So if I understood or any of us understand something, if at all we think we understand by self, what is needed to explain it to somebody? It needs some objective criteria. And in order to do that objective things, who does it? That is, consciousness emerges so-called within operations of the brain. This should be quote unquote, because I know there are many contradictions, many arguments which goes beyond my knowledge. Therefore, I said in the interest of time, as well as my ignorance, we can hold on the questions, though we can discuss. So there it comes when there are certain fundamental challenges. Even the modern science, consciousness, thought, self, life. Let us talk first with consciousness. And no less than Crick, the Nobel laureate, had said, there is no scientific study more vital to man than study of own brain. Our entire view of the universe depends on it. So we have to understand our whole view, and that we understand by the brain itself. Now, is it possible that we can understand our own brain? Like Ramakrishna had said, you had gone to measure the depth of sea with the salt stick. It's difficult there. So now what we do, we have to make a prototype to understand or rise above to understand. And therefore, every field, people like from physicists, psychologists, computational biology, chemistry, philosopher, everybody has jumped into the fray, and not today, but a long time. And here it is more evident now. Now we can raise many questions, and that can be debatable, that we can argue. But having said that, it's not that we should not proceed. So let us proceed, at least what we can make out of it. What do we make out here? We can't see anything. Does it mean things are not there? Let us see. Something appears. It makes little wider, then makes little closer than when it comes. If it comes like this, if it covers the entire so-called universe, if at all we can understand what is the universe. Again we say in the universe. Do we understand what the universe is? That is again limitation. There, either we say that we understood or we raise our hands. So again there is a limit. Within that limit, we try to understand ourselves and try to fight or argue, whatever. So here, those who understand or knew well will say whale, or in any other language will say some other language. If somebody points here, can say eyes of the whale, but one is whale. If one points here, that is tail. One can say whale, tail of the whale, but it is whale. And if in between there is something, do we say that it is a half whale? It's a perception again. That is again by our brain. And again we say it is whale. So this is way things are. It is on the observer. It is on the observing things. Then comes on the interpretation. It's a combination of all these. Then comes when it is individualization is on this individual, but non-locality is on the subject. The whale is the subject, be it whale's eyes, and then depends on how myopic we are, how focused we are, how magnified we are doing. But it depends, the information lies there or remains, but depends on how do we interpret that. As a big thing to do what is happening in our brain. And if it is so, then it is important for us to understand what is brain, because consciousness that emerges from operations in the brain that I said, is regarded, and this has subjectivity, self-awareness, sentience, and the ability to perceive. So everything, at least for the subject that we are talking about. Now, if somebody says that we are talking about whether atom, proton, neutron has something, I can argue. But then that is what, no, I'm restricting the way the topic in this, within this next 15 minutes I have. So it is a subject matter of research in philosophy, psychology, neuroscience, and cognitive science. Now, when we talk about conscious states, at least for modern science, we talk about 3 states. I'm talking modern science. I'm not talking about philosophy, Vedic, Upanishadic, and Buddhist. I'll come to that. There we talk about awake sleep and the so-called dream sleep. And as an experimenter, what is that we are doing? Experimenter, like me, many others, we try to find a correlation between structure and functional and their basis, and try to make correlation. Does it mean those who are non-experimental, they do not do that? Absolutely they do it. Only thing, they increase the RAM of the brain and try to make some understanding on it. And the experimental like us try to do something objective and try to correlate that. Why is it necessary? Is it necessary to explain it to somebody? Like if I take salt or sweet, what would anybody understand? And how do I make you to understand unless you have eaten it? Therefore, that is the correlation. A philosopher also does it. Only thing one doesn't want to accept, if at all. Others, they try to do it so that there is another person can also understand. If I say what is salt and what is something, I may not be able to make it understand if it is a rat. The rat will understand it in one sort of way. So this is how things are working in a manner. So if it has to be understood, it has to be understood in the brain. What is brain? Structure function correlation. There is some structure. Here it is, and then neurons. It releases some chemicals, and there are multiple inputs onto it, and a lot of things keep on going. Interestingly, what is the difference? If I put something on water in the plant that will absorb, if you think that way, does it get diffused? What we know of, it diffuses if it is an electrical potential, if there is a charge molecule. Where you have dimensionless and it can induce, only the potential might be. That is what is happening in a neuron. Here it has a charge. And if that charge is there, who is inducing it? It can induce in one neuron, but it goes on through these mediations. If that is there, once that was identified, one could correlate objectively what is sleep, what is wake. And that was till 1950s. Not that people did not know for 1,000 years what was sleep. There was no way to make somebody understand objectively what is sleep or waking. Then it was 1951, or 53 rather, 51 he identified. Here is the gentleman who is Asalinsky. He would say that how the brain wave changes, and this is in the cat recording, and then there will be rat recording, so that they also have it. But I'm not going to explain neurobiology or sleep waking in this symposium or seminar. Only thing I will say that after this objective criteria, it was identified there are stages, at least in modern science, wake, sleep and REM. And we in our lab have worked out what are the neural mechanisms. We have given models, these are the neural connections. It is, oh, something is going on here, maybe. Well, what I am saying that we made different models and ultimately we worked out, you will find this is the latest model, how REM sleep happens. But leave aside that, it is not that I have to make you expert or knowledgeable on it, but then people can work on it. And that is the latest model, be it in any part of the world. So, there I faced problem. Normally, what we find, it goes gradually from wake, sleep, and then dream sleep. So when I was explaining this, I found how does it work? Right? If it is here, normally from wake, one does not go to REM sleep. Yes, it goes in narcolepsy or disorder. But it goes from wake to non-REM sleep and goes to REM sleep. REM sleep is the stage where one dreams. But one can go from REM sleep to wake. So I had a problem in understanding that on which do they work? Where is it working? Then I turned into, see, mother of any even experimental science is philosophy. First thing, there has to be a conceptual understanding. So I tried to understand what if there is any, because a lot of people talk about a lot of big things about Vedic and Buddhist, which I do not know. Not that I know neuroscience a lot, but a little bit. So when I found there, I found something as a Turiya state, a fourth state. So as I said, modern science talks about wake, sleep, means non-REM sleep and dream sleep. Here it talks about Turiya state. And then whatever books I had, even Radhakrishnan's philosophy and some other philosophy, little bit I could make, there is something there. Then I caught hold of Ashok Mukhopadhyay, my good friend. I said, tell me, what is it? Then there are chapters written in Mandukya Upanishad and Chandogya Upanishad. And then what it emerges, because I have only 4 minutes left, there is a Turiya state, and after going through, can that explain? Where does Vedic Upanishadic knowledge lead us to? Can ancient wisdom and present objective knowledge, can they meet? Can Turiya state provide an explanation? Here, what I first made, one model, that if Turiya is a somewhere state, another one like sleep, wake, REM. So what I was thinking, the wake is going into Turiya and Turiya to not. It is coming, I cannot go on both the sides. I am local, I am not non-local. So I cannot go on both the sides. So if it is coming from here to going there, reversible, and then coming here, or from here and then going there, then the point is, who is deciding when will it go to Turiya? It doesn't make sense. Even I rejected my own models, and that is why I have written this. I term myself as a spoke model. The spoke model does not explain when and why state should choose Turiya state over other state. But then how is it happening? Then what I made, here, you see all around something, and I bet at the end people cannot see. I have written here Turiya, but from near you can see. So you cannot see that, but 3 states exist. So you will see these are reversible, but here it is unidirectional. And that happens even in disorder, even in normal case, because that is observation. You cannot deny observation. Philosophically, we can explain observation. Now, explanation can be wrong. Observation has to be correct, provided the observer is correct. And that depends on brain. Evidence should remain. So here, what I thought, the way if somebody is working on Turiya. I have only 3 minutes. So here, then if it is going to non-REM sleep, then it is going to REM sleep. So it is acting on an existing state, which is called Turiya. If it goes in and above, so that way you can explain what is happening in normal, and which comes up is the disorder. And therefore, probably in meditation, those practices, this is coming up and keeping subdued. And in that chapter I have written then why dreams come only in this REM sleep state, because of this. And that means Turiya is not from out of the world fourth state, it is within. It is existing, and this is, therefore what I have said here, the term is, masking and unmasking of expressions define different states. Then this is a testable hypothesis. Let it be rejected. But this is a testable hypothesis. The first thing we need that. So individuation and non-locality in this neuroscience, this is non-locality because Turiya is all over. What is individuation? When it comes to a specific state. And that is existing. Now what do we do for it? Is it just hypothesis? Brain waves are there, because I do not have only 1.5 2 minutes. You can change by modulating those neurotransmitters. This is what is the evidence. And the frequencies and wave pattern changes. Not only that, there are all more experts in physics, quantum physics and brain form. I do not dare to go into it. I have collaborated with nonlinear dynamics person and even a person with physics and all who have done PhD with me, and part of the data is here. Nonlinear dynamics, the physics professor with Ram Ramaswamy, and now mathematician Rajan Singh in our other schools. I am working with them. So if it is there, EEG waves can have an empirical mode decomposition, and one can have 10 different patterns, and basically there are different ways. If we change them, their intrinsic mode function changes during different states of wake, and this is what is the data, these are published. Now, if I change them, be it in a sleep state, be it wake state, dream state, or by inducing anesthesia, I can change them. And this is what is the rapt phases that we can change here. This is here at different non-REM sleep, wake and sleep, the rapt phases changes. And here between different states with anesthesia or no anesthesia. So based on this, we can pick up and probably we can say that which of these can induce something. Based on that, a sugar will taste like a salt. A salt will taste because if the cognitive function is different, one would taste differently. And that is a disorder. With this, I have 20 minutes and 10 seconds passed. Thank you very much. And I must appreciate all my students. The data is very peaceful, talking to the mode of philosophy, but I must acknowledge. And all my research and others from the taxpayers' money, and that is what is written. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. So, next speaker is. So, thanks for your interesting lecture and learned a lot about different states of sleep and things. So, next lecture is from Venerable Gishe Ngawang Sonam. So, he, after doing his primary education at TCV school for 10 years, Gishe joined Sera monastic seat of advanced Buddhist studies in 1995. This year, he formally graduates as a Gishe Larampa, the highest traditional monastic degree, equivalent of modern PhD, after completing 22 years of rigorous monastic studies and 6 successive years of examinations at the Gelugpa Monastic University. Since 2008, he has also served as an English interpreter for His Holiness the Dalai Lama on various occasions, and he has been working in the office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So he will be talking about individuation and non-locality in Buddhist philosophy. Over to you.
Thank you for the kind introduction and good evening to everybody. Today is the day, actually, according to Tibetan calendar, the day when the founder of my monastery, Sera Monastery University, Chamjutri Shage, passed away. So today is his anniversary, and tomorrow is Tonglapa's anniversary. So on such an occasion, I feel privileged. Although I'm just a very kind of ordinary scholar as compared to the great Indian scholars from Nalanda University and the universities of Sera Monastery, as well as Ganden Devon. I'm nobody, but because of my kind of education at TCB and so forth, I'm now able to present a portion of Indian philosophy, which has a lot of commonalities with modern science, particularly with quantum physics. So since we don't have much time, I'm going to rush through my presentation. I'm going to divide my presentation into 3 parts. The first with respect to foundation, and then second with respect to practice, and then what do you get from that, the result. So when establishing anything, whether it's education or medicine, whatever, you really need some kind of foundation. So likewise, when establishing reality, you really need, establishing like deeper reality, you will need to have some kind of foundation to begin with. So ascertaining reality is very important when it comes to Buddhist practice. So for us, it's just academic understanding of reality that really concerns us, because true understanding of reality is very important if you really want to take part to Buddhahood. So for that reason, ascertaining reality as it is, without superimposition, without exaggerating reality, that is very important. So the first part is ascertaining reality. That is very important. And after having a certain reality, having found the reality, what do you make of the reality? How do you use it properly? And then after having used that reality, what kind of result do you get ultimately and also temporarily or for the time being? So these are the three categories that I'm going to speak on. And first one is ascertaining reality. Oh. No, you can't. Okay, that's enough, yeah. Foundation, ascertaining reality. So in Nagarjuna, who was first a scholar from the Nalanda University, who lived during between 1st and 2nd century, so very old. So in his Mulya Madhyamika Karika, Fundamental Wisdom, the 24th chapter says, the Buddha's teaching of the Dharma is properly founded on two truths, the truth of worldly convention and ultimate truth. So you see, when we say truth of worldly convention, we are not denying what we usually see, hear, experience. With that as the foundation, then we try to find out if there is some kind of reality beside the appearance. And if there is a reality beside the appearance, when we engage with the reality, the appearances, in our thought processes, do we really interpret the ultimate reality as they exist? Or is there a distortion in our interpretation of reality? That is very important. Because sometimes we all have same appearances, but we have different experiences, different interpretations. And so some interpretation could be right, some could be wrong. So what determines which interpretation is right and what is wrong? And what if the interpretation is wrong? What happens then? So distortion of reality is the root of ignorance. No, it's the root of all those negative emotions from which all our negative karmas or activities stem up. And then we have catastrophe throughout the world because of our inability to control the mind. Therefore, establishing reality is very crucial. Then again, with same meaning, Vasubandhi says, with the object of deceptive worldly mind, object of transmitted worldly mind and thought, conventional and the ultimate reality have been spoken respectively. So when we say deceptive worldly mind, it means that basically, although we have some experiences, we tend to think of everything that appears to us as existing independently, intrinsically. So even within that mode of our experience, there are some level of truth. Without engaging in the ultimate nature of reality, under that obscurity, we still can somehow have valid cognition, valid convention. So that's what it means by deceptive worldly mind. Deceptive means you are obscured from the reality. But even still within that domain of obscuration, you can still have some kind of convention of reality. All right. Without the basis of conventional truth, the ultimate truth cannot be taught. So that's what Nagarjuna says. With conventional truth as basis, what we see, what we hear, the experiences of our six consciousness, the five sensorial and the fifth mental consciousness, by keeping them intact, then only we approach the ultimate reality. We do not reject that. We maintain what we usually consider in our world's life as true. And then beyond that, is there any reality which is not that tangible to us? So as everything is devoid of any intrinsic existence, this dependent origination has been properly taught by the incomparable Tathagata. So I still have to use the word dependent origination because I will explain the reason why production is not that utterly necessary. It's good still, because words in themselves don't really make the meaning. It's the way we understand the word. So for that reason, because by keeping in line with the contemporary translation terms, I'm using the same term. The ultimate supplying reality is justice. So reality is not an invention. We're just discovering reality as it is, without exaggerating, by being in the middle. You cannot say, oh, Buddhist says the reality of everything is emptiness, so I should try to prove everything to be emptiness. You shouldn't do that. Or neither should you do as others would say, that things exist independently. So I should always try to prove that in that direction. No, you should be in the middle and then investigate what is the reality. The reality might shock you in the beginning, because even the real understanding of emptiness, if you have really truly understood emptiness, then it's going to shock you. If it doesn't shock you in the beginning, then you have not really got emptiness properly. So the ultimate nature of thing is not invented by us. We only discover. So in the sutra it says, Tathagata means Buddhas have come into this world to teach emptiness. The real ultimate nature of things or not. The nature of things always will be intact, same. So we are not inventing reality by describing it. Now, before going into ultimate reality, as this concerns quantum physics, we have to understand conventional reality, and then from that conventional reality, we have to go into further reality. But within conventional reality, I think the concept of quantum physics is more relevant. So I have classification of conventional reality. Basically, three condition factors. Two condition factors means those things which are functional, all right, or impermanent phenomena. They can be divided into three: matter, consciousness, and associated conditioning factor. The third one is difficult for you. I don't have time, so let's skip this. So then we also have non-conditioning factor, means permanent factor like emptiness, selflessness, non-conditioning space. These are permanent nature of things. Why they are permanent, we don't have time for now. So now from that, from the first classification, three classification, let's take out matter. Matter can be classified in different ways, but I'm taking Asanga's compendium of Abhidhamma to classify matter. So can be classified into basically two: causal primary element, the four elements, right? Everybody knows what the four elements are: earth, water, fire, and wind. And then derivative forms, those that emerges from the combination of these four elements. So derivative forms can be divided into three: translation form, forms saved by the sense organs, forms saved by mental cognition. The third one is very difficult. Let's skip this. So Buddhist scholars maintain that material things emerge from the compilation of subtle particles, forming causal levels of reality, and that through the combination of atomic particles, diverse forms of physical objects come into existence. So this is very important. According to the law, now basically we have two kind of systems of Abhidhamma. This is from the perspective of law schools. That means Vipasika, Sotaran, because the lotus schools of Buddhist thought, they says physical entities or things are formed from the combination of 8 substantial particles, the 4 primary elements of earth, water, fire, and wind, and the 4 element derivatives of form, smell, taste, tactility. They maintain that if we deconstruct composite material entities, they can be reduced to the level of such particles, and that it is through the compilation of many of these such particles that causal physical things come into being. Now, how far can we break a solid thing, or something tangible to us? How far can we break the forms? So in general, they speak of 2 kinds of subtle particles. When you break unitary substantial particle, independent, and aggregated atom. The unitary in this context, the first is the smallest discrete unit of matter and is believed to be particleless. So they assert, finally, when you break it, reconstruct it, all right, dissect it, you'll come to something which has no part. So, however, this is challenged by the higher schools of Buddhist thought. Now, how we negate this notion of the lower schools of Buddhism, negating external objective existence. If a thing exists as the referential object of its labeling from its own side, then this raises 3 contradictions. Before labeling a referential basis of the term pot as pot, a thought that this is a pot should arise. Secondly, a particular thing with multiple labels with many names should also be multiple because there are now multiple names. Third, different entities with one common name should also become one, if objectively they are the referential basis for the designation of the term. So if from the side of the object, if it's the basic basis of designation independently, then if there are 3 names, then the object should be 3. Or if 3 objects have one common name, just as there is one name for 3 objects, likewise all of these 3 objects should merge into one and be one. So these are contradiction if you say things exist as the referential object of its labeling from its own side. That's why words independently do not make sense. It's how we choose to understand within our limited worldly convention, particular worldly convention. In Buddhist compared to Mahayana, it says, since thought do not arise before labeling, being multiple and not ascertain, being in its nature and with multiple nature, and as they would merge into one due to contradiction, this is established. So this is the this is a reference from where I'm quoting. So again, secondly, if objectively things exist, then this is another contradiction. Like hungry ghosts, animals, humans, when they focus on one entity, they have different interpretation of the object. As perceptions are different, it is asserted that external entity does not exist. If from the side of the object it exists from its own side, then 3 people would not have different interpretations or different appearances of the object. So because they have different experiences or appearances, that means objectively it's not appearing from its own side. Then if they do not exist, then objectively, then how do they exist? So this is an instance, like dreams of the past and others, as well as reflections in the mirror and so forth. Although a focal object does not exist from their side, still it is possible to view them. In the dream, you might meet somebody, but the person is not there in reality. Just that appearance is there. Likewise, you can. Now, third is negating compounded physical entity and subtle particles before being focal objects of mind. This I'll skip. Okay. Negating partless particles, that is very important. So in 20 verses by Buddhist, it says, if 6 converge at the same time, an atom would have 6 parts. If these 6 parts occupied the same spatial location, a complete mass would be merely the size of a particle. So if, I'll show you, there are 6 dimensions of a partless particle. Let's say a partless particle is in the middle here, and is surrounded by 5 other partless particles, or 6 other particles on 4 sides and top and bottom. So if all of them are particles, what happens if they combine? They will be the size of one partless particle. There is no way they can meet one another because there is no direction. They have no direction. It's just a drawing that I have somehow imagined, but these are all partless particles. So if these particles somehow meet, because causal levels of forms are, according to the lower schools, are formed from partless particles. So if these partless particles combine, they cannot become really causal because they are partless. That means they will only merge into one. So it says, if these subtle particles has no distinct spatial particles, when the sun shines, how could a shadow fall in its seat on its particle particles other side? If there is no part, like this is one part and this is not the other part. If the sun shines here, then we can't say the shade is here because it should also shine here because there is no part. So that is very difficult. Anyway, escape. Now we have to see if physically external objects does not exist, then perhaps mind might exist. So again, according to Nagarjuna and the Prasangika school, mind devoid of its object does not exist independently. So neither the mind nor the objects exist independently. So since they mutually depend, object and mind mutually depend on one another, because of that they do not exist independently. So now the person who has mind and body, how does it exist? It's neither the aggregate nor separate from the aggregate. If the person is separate from the aggregate, means the body and the minds, okay, constituents. then it means you don't have to refer to this body and the minds of mine to address me. So because of that, being separate from me, my aggregates, it's impossible. Then self should be one with my aggregates. And there are lots of contradictions, but I don't have time to explain all those things. But this is generally how we infer the absence of an independent entity because of reasoning that it's mutually, mentally imputed, objectively neither separate from the physical constituent nor one with the constituent is the self. Because of that, self does not exist independently. It's merely mentally imputed. Okay. Okay. Practice now. Now it's very important. How do we, when we say things do not exist objectively at their own side, then how do we use that information in our practice? So important thing is, through misunderstanding emptiness, a person of little intelligence is destroyed. This has been cautioned. So just like a snake wrongly seeds or a magical spell wrongly cast, you could fall into, we could plunge down into the extreme of nihilism. So it's very important because emptiness does not mean nothingness. And you might fall in the direction of nihilism if you understand emptiness to mean nothingness. Therefore, knowing how difficult it is for those with little intelligence to apprehend the depth of this profound reality, the Buddha's mind was completely turned away from giving teachings on it. Now, why is ascertaining reality important? It is because it says in Chandrakita's Madhyamika Karika that all faults of affliction arise from egoistic view, grasping at a perishable collection of. Seeing this with your mind, understanding this, and realizing that self is the object of this grasping, the yogi will engage in the negation of the independent self. So self negated here is not the conventional self. Independent self that appears to our ignorance, that is negated. With the cessation of karma and delusions, liberation is attained. Karma and delusions arise from conceptualization, exaggeration. First, we misinterpret reality, and then further on, elaborate our misinterpretation with more additions of exaggeration. And then all these negative emotions like attachment, anger arises. These arise from elaboration. At the root of it is misunderstanding of reality. Elaboration comes to cease through understanding emptiness, that things exist dependently, and because of that, they are devoid of any tangible intrinsic reality. Now, result. Do I have time right now? 1 minute, okay. Ultimate result is Buddhahood. It says in Chandrakita's Madhyamika Karika, for whom the wings of conventional truth and suchness and emptiness are spread wide, so you preserve both of them. This king of swans shall take the lead in front of all swan-like beings, and through the powerful force of the wind of virtues, he shall travel to the excellent shore of the oceans of Buddha's quality. So ultimately, by understanding the concept of the two truths, you ultimately attain enlightenment. Immediately, the benefit that you get is foundation of all positive qualities. This is a very beautiful conclusion of Tsongkhapa's text. So I translated that for you in Tsongkhapa's quintessence of excellent instructions. It says, the crucial points of profundity and vastness, so difficult to fathom even for those bodhisattvas well learned in all the academic fields, having found them perfectly, and upon properly developing familiarity with them, as my mind is completely satisfied with the great celebration that arose from the impeccable single-pointedness, wisdom and discipline, sometimes pure faith in Buddha's hidden in me. On other times, I remember the kindness of great pioneers of the tradition, and on other occasions, respect for the learned scholars and compassion for the destitute sentient beings, as well as the wish that the precious doctrine of the Buddha Dhamma continues for long. All of these continues to proliferate as if competing with one another, all those positive things, qualities within your mind. Therefore, the difficult point that has been long lost, having discovered them through modes of reasoning, showing how marvelous this material display is. Even when I'm alone on my own, I could not control words of absolute joy that just slipped through my tongue. So this is the experience that a person who truly understands emptiness gets. So again, you might say, oh, if everything is emptiness, how can you practice compassion? This is because when you really know the root of samsara, ignorance, how distorted it is, then naturally a feeling of empathy for others will arise in you. So Nagarjuna's praise of Bodhicitta says, thus, if this emptiness, if yogis meditate upon this, there is no doubt that he would generate the mind of attachment for others' well-being. In this context, attachment is compassion, but since they have the same kind of a role in not giving up sentient beings, the term attachment has been used here. Thank you.
Last in this session is from Sir Anirban Pathak. Sir Anirban Pathak is a theoretical physicist. He did his PhD from Vishwabharati, Shanti Niketan. At present, he is actively involved in teaching and research related to several aspects of quantum optics and quantum information. He is a visiting scientist at Palaki University, Czech Republic. He guided 5 PhD students, and at present he leads a research group focused on quantum optics and quantum information. He is a recipient of Sri O.P. Bhasin Award in 2017 in the field of electronics and information technology. He will be talking about individuation and non-locality in quantum physics.
Before I start, I would like to thank the organizer for initiating this dialogue, because historically hardly there was any dialogue between the disciplines involving philosophy and physics. Means there was some dialogue maybe between philosophy and physics, but not with the religious bodies. And initially, looking at the topic, I was thinking that means how can I fit into this? I'm a physicist and I know the quantum physics part, but I hardly know anything about philosophy or say about brain. But then I thought that somewhere I can connect. I have a brain and I have a degree in philosophy. I have a doctor of philosophy degree. So I took the courage and came here, but it's better to give some cautions before I start. This is going to be a lucid talk. So it may not be technically perfect at every point because I will not use equations, mathematics, etc. And as I mentioned, I hardly know anything about brain, but I teach a course on artificial organs, biomaterials, and I teach another course on physics for biologists. So I have some feeling, and I find brain to be very complex. Physics is not really ready to understand such complex things. So being an information theory researcher means I know that even a simple protein is a very big problem. Solving harmonic oscillator is very easy. There is a ball and a string. The moment there are more atoms, electrons, it's become very difficult. Suppose there is a simple problem which is easy to explain. You take a protein and you fold it, put it in a liquid. The protein will immediately fold into such a situation that its bond angle will be such that, bond length will be such that energy will be minimized. In nature, everything goes for minimum energy. So if I drop something, it will go down for minimum energy. But if you employ all the supercomputers available to find out what will be the minimum energy configuration, it will take millions of years. So this is protein folding happens in nature very easily. But to understand that model, that physics is not yet ready, means when the system is much more complex, and brain is probably the most complex thing. And the other complex thing is quantum mechanics. And when you merge both of them in one meeting, it becomes very difficult. So I remember that when we were in MSc, we heard a definition of teacher. So the definition of teacher was, if you cannot convince, you must confuse. So then in the canteen, we were discussing that by this definition, who is our best teacher? So all of us agree that the quantum mechanics teacher is the best teacher. So I'll try to not to be your best teacher and use it as lucid as possible. And here is something to deal with the terminology, and often you will find that the terms are same, but actually modern science is developed in a systematic manner and not really owe much to the same terms which is existing in religion or in other texts or philosophy or something. So this will be clear. And as I mentioned that I thank you for initiating the dialogue. Dialogue was not there, and many things means, say, Galileo Galilei was opposed, Bruno was burned. So these kind of things happen. But we learn from the old things and initiating things, and a dialogue is very important. But the way I was telling you that the notion is often different. So the previous speaker was talking about reality, but the notion of reality to me is different. And especially physicists does not talk in a language which is really English. Suppose some physicists tell you about flavor and charm. So don't think about charm, it's a quantum number, it means something different to that. In newspaper, you will find that somebody has written that he has been arrested, but before arresting him, he was under observation for 5 years or 5 months or something. So the police is giving his excuse. So police can observe a person, but I cannot. What it makes sense. You can see me, but you cannot observe me. So in quantum mechanics, observations mean something very specific. Observable is something which can be measured. You cannot measure me. What you can measure? You can measure my age, so time is observable. You can measure my mass, so mass is observable. You can measure my velocity, momentum, position. So these are classically physical properties which can be measured. So corresponding things in quantum mechanics are observable. And the point is that in quantum mechanics, this observable have, if you measure them, you get some values. And the word quantum means discrete. When you measure, you get only certain values. So this is different. Classically, somebody can have a position, means suppose I start measuring position from this point, it can be 1 meter away, 1.1 meter away, or I'm measuring velocity, it can be 1 kilometer, 1.1 kilometer per hour, 1.11 kilometer per hour. So all values are allowed. Quantum mechanically it is not so. So it is discrete. And the word discrete means quantum. But on measurement, the value which I get, is it already there? Or when I measure, then I get it. So if it is already there and the measurement only reveals, then it is real. So that's the notion of reality. So even if you find out in some text that there is some mention of reality, it may not be the same thing in this context quantum mechanics uses. So, but the world of quantum mechanics is more magical than any science fiction. So many things happens which is so counterintuitive. And we'll give some exposure try to give some exposure. So here you can see a cartoon. So here is a girl plus fish, means marine. So if you have been to Copenhagen, this kind of statue is there. So there is a half girl, half fish, and this kind of thing is there in many stories. So teacher is asking a student, can you give me an example of quantum superposition? The student is telling that it's a marine, but teacher says that but nobody has ever seen a marine. So student is telling that the moment you measure, it collapses either to a girl or to a fish. So when you try to lucid, this kind of things happen. So this is not actually the case. In quantum mechanics, you can also construct a measurement basis in which marine is an element, and then if you measure it as a marine, you will get a marine. So, but it can be simultaneously two places. And that is the manifestation of superposition. That's not what we mean by non-locality. So, Professor Malik was telling that at the same time he cannot show project this light in this slide and as well as in that display because he is local. So that's not the notion of locality or non-locality to us. So you can be simultaneously in two places, and that's allowed. That's the nature of wave or in superposition when a theory allows superposition, but that's not what non-locality is. So the notion of non-locality will be clear in the next slide, but quantum mechanics, this happens that there are superposition, and the moment you measure, it collapses. So if I see it as a fish, the question is whether this marine has any choice to become a fish or not, whether it is my will that it become fish, and When I observe with fish, was it before fish or before that it was marine? And only my measurement collapses it to fish. So these are the questions which are of relevance. And we look into things from optics. So if there is a source of photon and it's giving a single photon, a photon is a quanta of light, it comes to here, this is called a beam splitter. And so beam splitter is simply a piece of glass. So why do you see the glass? Glass is transparent, but still you see, but because some of the light get reflected and some get transmitted. So now, normally a glass reflects only 4%, a good quality glass, and transmits 96%. I think that I make it somewhere that 50% is reflected, 50% is transmitted. So it's partially a mirror and partially a transparent, a semi-opaque substance. So if I take one photon, half of the time it will go here and half of the time it will go here. And sometimes this detector will click, sometimes this detector will click. So classical explanation is that something like a coin. A coin is sometimes head, sometimes tail. But quantum mechanics tells that after the beam splitter, just like the marine, it do exist in this line as well as this line. It is reflected as well as transmitted. It's simultaneously in both. So that's absolutely counterintuitive. So I'm here as well as in my institute, maybe as well as in Allahabad. So everywhere one can be. But the moment you try to see it, you find it somewhere here. But classically, if I say that a photon is a ball, and the ball sometimes goes here and sometimes goes here, just like a coin, then also half of the time this detector will click and half of the time this detector will click. So can I distinguish between these two situations? The answer is yes. So this is the situation. This has a technical name, it's called a Mach-Zehnder interferometer. So first part is same, there is a beam splitter, and then there are two mirrors which reflect it back, and then there is another beam splitter. So classically, if it is a ball-like thing, half of the time it will go here, half of the time here. And suppose I start with 100 such balls, 50 goes here. Out of those 50, 25 will go here, 25 will go here. And out of this 50, 25 will go here. So statistics will remain same, 50-50. But in quantum mechanics, it will happen that since this is simultaneously in both places, it will not behaving like a particle, it behaving like a wave. Only particles have trajectory. So they will interfere here and only one of them will click. So this one will click and this one will never click. So this simple experiment tell me that actually superposition is possible. So is that superposition anyway useful? Because being physicists, we are much materialistic. We don't look at physics, we look at, can I make something out of this? So this is a product which is called Quantis. ID Quantic is a company where somebody was mentioning about Nicholas Gissin established this and they said this product. This is a random number generator. So quantum mechanically, whether in this situation, whether this detector will click or this detector will click, that's absolutely random. So when I teach in my class, I often tell that after the beam splitter, which one will click, even Rajnikant does not know that. So this is so much random. So this randomness is intrinsic in quantum mechanics. And we can exploit randomness to build product. And you will be surprised that who is the biggest buyer of this product. So I asked one Nicholas Gissin that who buys this maximally. I was expecting that it will be research lab. To my surprise, he told that it is the casinos. So casinos need a random number, state lotteries need it, DTA to allot flats need it. So many people need in the real world random number. All this, everything you have to simulate in Monte Carlo simulation, you need random number. So this comes from quantum superposition principle. So I use it for something else. Now I come to this idea that what do we mean by sometimes there are quantum optical phenomena where light particles try to keep their individualization or individuality. So normally if you take this bulb, the lights are coming and here is again, I already mentioned a beam splitter. So one particle goes here, one particle goes here and I measure the time that how many of them are simultaneously coming. So whether this detector and this detector click simultaneously. So if they click at the same time, it means that two photons came together. How many times they click after a gap of 5 seconds, how many times they click after 10 seconds. And if I get something like this, it means that most of the times they click at the same time. So they are coming in group. So they are bunch. If this pointer is given, this is a laser light, this will have a flat thing that there is no correlation. And this is a quantum source which we normally call anti-bunch. So in anti-bunch, if I measure this correlation, I will see this kind of dip. So what this dip means, these are the quantum sources which wants to keep their individual identity. So they want to come one by one. So they don't come in a group. At a detector, they don't lose their identity. So kind of notion of individuality was there in quantum mechanics, but it is not true in general. So there is a postulate called indistinguishability. And how do you distinguish between two cars, say? I give a simple example. So by their color, model number, their position, so one is parked here, the one is parked another place. Now, consider that they are completely identical. So their color is same, make is same, they are symbol. Then you have to note their position. Can you do that for a quantum mechanical particle? Not always. I don't say that always you cannot identify, but there are situations where you cannot identify. So there the individuality is gone. So what would mean? So in quantum mechanics, a particle has all its properties are bundled into a mathematical function, which is an abstract thing called wave function. So wave function is a packet of information. I don't solve Schrodinger equation or something, I just tell you that wave function has every information about the system. And this wave function evolves over time. So if I write in a position space, then and I take a modulo square, means I ignore the minus sign and square, then I get the probability of getting it at position x, but it evolves over time. So when I measure it now, and I measure it after 5 seconds, so after 5 seconds it's evolved in time. So I cannot tell that this was a car A or car B, or particle A or particle B. So there are situations where, because of indistinguishability principle, they lose their individualization. So individualization is not all about connected to non-locality and entanglement, but I quickly come to a more magical world of quantum mechanics. Let's understand locality. So locality, understanding locality is very simple. Suppose I want to move this. So how can I move? I have to push it. So I have to touch it. So directly I can affect only those things which I can touch, or which are next to me. I can push this one. But now, suppose I want to push this monitor, but I don't want to touch this monitor. So what I do, I take this pen and then touch this monitor. So then local things are sequentially connected. So local events are also sequentially connected. So you may think that you have a cordless mouse and you can change your signal. But then from the cordless mouse, some electromagnetic wave is radiated, that light is going and controlling your signal. So it's a sequence of things which is happening. You can hear me because I am creating a vibration. The vibration is propagating through air. It's creating another vibration in your air membrane, and then neurons are converting that mechanical signal into electrical signal, and so on. So this is the notion of local. So if I can affect something at a distance without anything in between, affecting anything in between, and without touching, that will be called non-local. So that's the simple notion of non-local. Is it something unusual? The answer is no. The description of nature, the description of the world from modern physics was always non-local except for 10 years between 1915 to 1925. So I'm coming to that. So I start with to make it more lucid, I give some notion. So these are Hollywood and Bollywood movies, and the names of the movies are written below. So in many movies you will see that there are twins, and one twin is beaten and the other twin is just feeling that other one is beating, or feeling the pain or something like that. Or something is happening with the kid and the mother has a feeling. So these are the examples of non-local things without mentioning anything to quantum mechanics, that nothing happens in between, no thing is affected, and you beat Salman Khan and Shahrukh Khan have a feeling, or you make a punch here and a nose is broken at Dharmashala, something like that. So how was the idea? So the first thing of non-locality in modern science appeared with the Newton. So when Newton gives his theory of gravity, so you know that in gravity there are two masses, m1 and m2, and each of them attract each other, and the force is m1 m2 divided by r squared. But is it propagated with some speed? At that time it was felt that it's immediate, it's instantaneous. So that's non-local. In between there is a free space. There is nothing between Andromeda galaxy and Earth. So how then Andromeda galaxy or our sun attracts Earth, or another star attracts our sun? So this was actually a non-local theory, because by the definition of locality, there is no string which is touching between the Earth and the sun. There was no rope which is holding us. So it is the gravity and which was non-local. Then, but Newton was not happy with this. So nobody likes, local thing is something which we see every day. So Newton was not happy. Newton even tried to write that there are some hypothetical particles and in between, and which goes and connect things, but it was unsuccessful. Then comes Coulomb. So Coulomb's law is something similar, that there are two charge particle and light charges repel, but how it repel? It's the same way that charge times charge divided by r square, and it was non-local also. Then comes Michael Faraday. He gives some idea of lines of force which some way connect, but nobody thinks that it is a serious physical entity. People think that it's phenomenological. The velocity of light was measured and Maxwell's beautiful equations come. And Maxwell's beautiful equations make electromagnetic interaction into local. That light, and with Einstein's special theory of relativity, give it extra weightage. So now light is something which moves. So light is an electromagnetic wave, and electromagnetic field moves with the velocity of light. So how a charge E applies a force on another charge E, it's a local because it moves through the field and the field affects the next charge. So this Coulomb part become local, but still the gravity was non-local. In 1915, Einstein come up with the idea, which is called general theory of relativity, where space is like a sheet as shown here. So you can think like a rubber sheet. And in rubber sheet, when you just hold your bed sheet, means two corners in one side and the other two corners, and you put a mass, the mass will create a well, which is like a potential well. And now you drop another mass, it will be attracted, because it will follow the path towards more minimum energy. So this version of gravity makes it local. And then gravity and Coulombic force become local, and till the introduction of quantum mechanics, till 1925, quantum mechanics, the nature description of nature was local. But in 1925, quantum mechanics came and it became non-local again. Then 1935, Einstein was not happy with it, and Einstein gave this famous EPR paradox. So I'm not going into detail, but this was something like that I create two particles, one is of opposite nature, and one has a spin up and one is down, and they are separated. So I don't know which one is down and which one is up, just like the way I explained the quantum mechanics, that it can be simultaneously in up down. But now I have two particle system, and state is like up down plus down up. So if I measure the first one and find it as up, then the second one must be down. And if one particle is here and the other particle is at Dharmashala, so I do a measurement here, a local measurement, and that affects the particle in Dharmashala, so that appears to be non-local and propagates with the velocity greater than light. So that was Einstein's problem. But Bohr was a bit philosophical here, and Bohr tell that forget about the old notion of reality and accept quantum mechanics. So our notion of reality is different, but there was no test that how do you know that this is the quantum mechanics is correct or not, or quantum mechanics is incomplete or not. So there comes 1964, John Bell, who introduced that, well, if there is a hidden variable, that quantum mechanics is incomplete and there are some variables which I have not considered, and there is some other complete local theory, then this will be the predictions, and if it is violated, it will verify that quantum mechanics happens. But Bell's theorem I am not talking because Arvinda has already told. But there was no experimental test. Then Allen Aspect made a test in 1982 and proved that the world is really non-local. But then people find out that in Allen Aspect test, some assumptions are used which is questionable. So there are two detectors which can if they can communicate with a velocity close to light, then they are not so much separated, the window for measurement. And then in 2015, a loophole-free Bell measurement happened, and with all questions were more or less solved, and physicists strongly believe now that world is non-local. So how it happens? So there is some kind of crystal called BBO, we send a light, and we get two photons. One of them is horizontally polarized and one of them is vertically polarized. So if this ring is horizontal, this ring is vertical, but in these 2 points, I don't know which one is horizontal, which one is vertical. And this is called entanglement. And when you can separately mark that which photon is what, then it is called separable. So separable means you can keep your identity. You know that which particle is what, which particle is in 0. 0 may be a red ball or blue ball. So which one is red and which one is blue. And when it loses that, if I am red, then you are blue. If I am blue, then you are red. Then this kind of things are called entanglement. So this we use every day, and we use for very beautiful applications. So here is one application which is called teleportation. So in teleportation is not like a fax. In fact, you have a copy and the other copy is created there. In quantum mechanics, you cannot make a copy of a quantum state. So it destroys from here and recreated there. So it's not like a letter. A letter is always available in the channel. It was never available in the channel. So here is a boy which is going from a teleportation station in Delhi to New York, and when he reaches New York, his nose and ear has been changed. So he asked that what happened. Then the teleportation hostess, like air hostess, is telling that due to noise, we cannot achieve the unit fidelity. So the copy cannot become perfect. So noise is a problem. That's why we cannot build good quality quantum computer, but it's in the process. And once a good computer is built, this is what the society will look. So here we show that there are two banks. In a classical bank, everybody is closing account, and in a quantum bank, everybody is opening account, although the classical bank has 50 years of experience. So this is something called manifestation of quantum cryptography, where we can give unconditional security. So this, and the China has made an experiment from using this quantum character. They have sent information from China to Austria, and this was a much discussion. So these are some beautiful applications of non-locality which is happening, which excites us more. And it's not limited to only teleportation and cryptography. Many things happens, like we work on voting, we work on auctions. So the whole point is that quantum mechanics is in doorstep. It can be usable for day-to-day applications, but still it is rich in its philosophical content, and still it's rich in its foundational debates. And I will finish with the end note that the way I present, it looks like that everybody accepts that world is non-local and there is no question. The answer is not like that. There are still professional physicists who have doubts about whether quantum mechanics is complete or not, and they have theories, and even people have questions on whether loophole-free measurements are really loophole-free or not, whether the so the dialogue in the scientific quantum mechanics community is always on, and it's nice that you all are also joining in that dialogue. That's
we are short of time, behind schedule, so I think maybe one or two questions. Any questions?
Professor Malik, what I had to break out from your one here was that you were talking about REM in the region of Sushumna. So have you taken Sushumna out of the Chaturya, or what have you done there? I couldn't get a clear view of that.
The Upanishad as such will be talking about Jagrat, and then Swapna, Nidra, and then Turiya. Whereas the modern science as such talks about waking, that is Jagrat. Then it talks about non-REM sleep, which is Sushupti. But if the sequence is correct, Upanishadic says Jagrat and then Swapna. I don't know why they have said that. That is a contradiction, at least with me, with the so-called evidential science. But what we are saying, if you talk about the Swapnavastha, the question comes, if we are little exposing on our cognitive things, like in waking, your aspirations and your feeling and everything is there. But one is on deep sleep, not swapna, your other feelings are not there. But in swapna stage, you reject all these by some mechanism, but you experience, I can be in sleep, I can see my mother but not the touch feeling. Or I can find that somebody is murdering me as well. So because of that, probably in my view, if we have to understand part of this experience, we need to understand the neural basis of REM sleep. if we want to understand that, when I was trying to explain, then I was unable to explain whatever in modern science, wake sleep, non-REM sleep and REM sleep. On what does it work? Like if we say body has a temperature, where is it? Can we think of without a materialistic thing? There has to be a substance, and that is brain. So I was trying to explain where I was unable to explain. Then I went back. That is, there I found the Turiya state. But experimentally we need to explain for even self to understand and make others to understand. There the Turiya state is all inclusive. And that I can explain by this, on which REM, non-REM, wake and everything is working. That is what it is. And how to explain? Possibly there has to be some wave pattern. The way the previous speaker, Professor Pathak said, locality, non-locality, yes, there has to be some wave pattern. It is not that quantum mechanics doesn't say there is no link. It's an understanding. So therefore I said, therefore it is in the neuron where there are charges. Now, will it have in a somatic cell in this muscle or a liver cell? It would. But then it is very feeble. That can be measured with the modern science. So it is a matter of understanding, and understanding depends on how the neurons are connected. And that can happen only it has those charges and it has a field potential, however small it is. And that is what I showed, the wave pattern, and that does change. Thanks.
Just to Dr. Malik. So if I understand your concept properly, you have been telling that the transition between NREM and REM sleep takes place on the premises of assuming that there is a all-pervading Turiya state. Am I right?
Why do you expect there has to be a transition? Because you have learned, you have read it. But can you explain that? That is what is the explanation here. Why do you think there are two different states? And if you think there are two different states, you have to think of there is an intermediary. Otherwise you cannot explain. That is what is the Turiya state. So philosophers have talked about it, but one has not been able to show. I am trying to say that this is where one can show, reject it. But for that you have to do it.
Why I asked you this question is, now in the different states, say for example from wake to sleep, or maybe within the wake of the different states of consciousness, including the Turiya or the meditative states, it all depends on the delicate balance of thermocortical oscillations, how we maintain. So then do you think that this Turiya state is not dependent on the thermocortical fine-tuning of the thermocortical oscillations?
All these what you are saying, they are acting on the Turiya state. Whatever the oscillations you are talking about, that means there is a fundamental oscillation. If you identify them, that is what I showed by empirical mode decomposition, what you are saying thermocortical, that will fall in one of them. That is what I showed you, the EEG having 10 different empirical mode decomposition and has intrinsic mode functions. And I showed you there are 7 intrinsic mode functions with the limited knowledge. But it could be more or less, I do not know. But then these are experimentally can be shown. What so far you are saying, whatever you have read, but you are not questioning why they are. I am trying to give an explanation for it.
I think we should stop here because it's already, there is time. Okay, he is already waiting there. I can see him. One more question and then we will stop this.
Yeah, I think 2 questions, one to sir and one to you. My question which you have already answered, I just wanted to add one more thing, sir. In other scriptures, other than Turiya state, there are other states also. Turiya, Theta, Kaivalya, Hamsa, Parahamsa. So, do you think, or maybe we are still very much behind in assuming that they could be playing some role? That is my question to you. And so to you actually, I wanted to ask, you described that previously before this quantum mechanics, mostly it was non-local in nature, the explanations of physics, but later on as the explanations came, they started assuming that it's not completely non-local, maybe charge or gravitation may be playing a role. But for quantum physics, non-locality, as of now, there is no clear-cut explanation. And some people have proposed the concept of implicit order. So, as they say that we are existing in an explicit order and there is another implicit order where they may be connected in some other way, like maybe gravitation or charges are connected with each other. So my question is that, do you feel that implicit order is one of the ways of explaining the entanglement and non-locality? Or do you feel that it's more like a present order of the explicit order of the everything will be revealed just time passes?
These are in some sense playing with the words, and I don't think there's any need of
question at different divisions. I will just answer one or two lines. Yeah.
No, implicit order is a theory, so that is for sure. But may not be very accepted. Practice definitely a theory.
So, if you want, that means how community thinks and how generally scientists thinks. This is not something which is technically acceptable.
No, sir. One quantum physicist working with me on the implicit order. We have published in archives and neuroquantology. But it's okay. But my question is that, do you think that it's a possibility?
No.
So mostly it will be explicit only that we should be thinking about.
Yes.
Okay. So you.
Yeah, I think what you are talking about is the matter of resolution. And once we talk about the matter of resolution, and if it is a substance, it will depend on the time constant. And it matters on there. And part of it I have dealt with in my chapter, what I said. When we say about wake, there are grades of wakefulness. If we say about this, so it's a matter of resolution. To sum it up in a few sentences. Others, since the time is short, we can talk more. But it's a matter of resolution and time constant.
So maybe we'll allow you.
Lady should
because morning
yes.
also will be.
As far as my knowledge of Upanishadic text goes, in the Upanishads we have 4 states: the Jagrat, then the Sapna, then the Shruti, and in some state, Mandukya Upanishad, we have the concept of the Turiya state. But I think that the classification is the necessity of admitting the Shapna state for the Shukti or the ordering is in this way. First of all, the self, because the basic question addressed in the Upanishad is how to know yourself, how the self can be known. In order to answer this metaphysical question, all these texts have been discussing. So, in the Jagrat state, then we have the external objects. So, our mind goes on to the external, focuses on the external object. But in the case of Shapna, there is no external object. Still, we have awareness or consciousness of the external object. And in the case of Sushupti, we have consciousness, but not of anything, because Sushupti is the state of deep sleep. And in the Turiya state, that is why in most of the Upanishads, they do not speak of the Turiya states, because Turiya state is one variety of the Sushupti state, where there is no object outside the self itself. So, in that sense, it is a state of pure consciousness.
Should I? Okay, I think it's a matter of interpretation and then what we accept and what we don't accept. The point what you are saying, what you have read at certain point and somebody has said, but there is no evidence. But you accept evidence is there or not there. I'm talking about how to explain them. As I said, I am an experimental scientist and I would try to see where is it and how is it. I was trying to give the explanation and I don't have that much of time now, but we can talk at the tea time, or I encourage you, I invite you to read that chapter, or if you give my email, I can pass on that chapter where I have talked about these things. Why really swapna or the dream comes in that stage, and why is it necessary? To sum it, to say in brief. Thanks.
So we thank all the speakers and the audience for the interaction. So the session ends now. I leave it to you.
Thank you very much, and I would like to request Professor C.C. Roy to felicitate to our chairperson and speakers with the souvenir. Professor Usha Devi ji. Professor Virendra Mani ji. Honorable Keshav also Nula. Professor Anirban Pratapji. Thank you, Professor Sisirji. The next session will resume after 5 minutes. Please be seated. Thank you.
Thank you very much for kindly chairing.
So for the fourth session, the fourth and the last session of this day, we have the session on quantum ontology and doctrine of two truths in Buddhist philosophy. To speak at this exclusive lecture session, we have Professor C.C. Roy. May I request him to please come on the dais and take his seat. And to chair this session, we have Professor Prasoon Roy. So, as being instructed by Professor Prasoon Roy, I won't indulge in any introduction, so I would request Professor Roy to come on the podium and say a few words about Professor C.C. Roy.
Yes, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Professor C.C. Roy. I know him for a number of decades, if I can say, here. So I was in some part of my career, I was in the Indian Statistical Institute. So that time, it was almost 20 years back, MRI was just coming to the general mainstream. So there was some spatio-temporal mapping problem in which a number of us were working. So that is the time when a cognitive function, fMRI was just being born that time. And so how you would, what does fMRI investigate? The internal perception. So how is the cognitive world mapped in different temporal cortices, auditory cortices? So there is a spatio-temporal mapping. So for that, I went to Professor C.C. Roy. He was a professor in the Physics and Applied Mathematics Unit of Indian Statistical Institute. And there I had some interaction with him on curved space. He introduced me to Finsler metric, which I have used in my PhD thesis. Yeah. And then it's a pleasure that later when I joined the National Brain Research Center and was setting up India's first national imaging facility, we had the good fortune of inviting him, and he gave a talk on the spatio-temporal mapping to the MSc and PhD students. So that was about 10-15 years ago. After that, we have been meeting frequently. I visited ISN, and there have been a number of conferences where I've been meeting. And then lately, he has gone and joined the National Institute of Advanced Studies. And there also, whenever I go to Bangalore, I chat with him. It's a pleasure to be with him, you know. And from the neuroscience perspective, he has worked with Linus. So a little bit, there was somebody was saying that, Professor Mukund, Professor Mukund is also one of my intellectual mentors from a distance. I'll also have a occasion to introduce him somewhere, at least in a neuroscience audience. So Professor Mukunda said was searching whether there is a scope of space-time or relativity application to the neuroscience. So he and Linus had developed this model, which we will not go into detail now. So it is my privilege now to welcome Professor Roy to start this lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Roy. And he was my young collaborator for many, many years. And it's a late afternoon. Maybe people are feeling busy, and I should talk on such a subject may make more dizziness. And okay, if I finish the lecture earlier, then I can open my lecture for discussions. Let's see. So, title of my today's talk is Quantum Ontology and Doctrine of Two Truths in Buddhism. And tomorrow, Geshe-la, Geshe will be down, he will give just the opposite. He will start with Doctrine of Two Truths in Buddhism and quantum reality or like that. So, what is called ontology? If you ask me what is meant by ontology of a physical theory, I will follow the definition of a famous person in MIT. He is working with philosophy of science. According to his definition, it's an irreducible conceptual element in the logical construction of reality that is concerned with a real existence, that is with an autonomous existence without reference to anything external. So I do follow this kind of statement when I say ontology. And before going into details of the talk, let me start with layers of truth in modern physics. Not exactly I am saying like conventional or ultimate truth. Let me say layers of truth. One is say classical ontology. Normally it deals with the everyday objects. And quantum ontology, usually it deals with microscopic entities. But again, my hardcore physicist friends are here. They might say that even people understood the behavior of macroscopic objects like superconductor, that's very much that exist in lab, and also liquid helium. So even the quantum principles are used to understand the behavior of macroscopic entities. And Tony Levitt, who won Nobel Prize, he developed a theory called macroscopic theory of quantum mechanics. So it's very difficult to say that quantum principles cannot be applied to macroscopic objects. We have a fuzzy region. For some macroscopic objects, quantum principles are needed, because without that we cannot really understand the behaviors. So how somebody, when he says that quantum ontology from classical ontology, because when you say classical ontology, I mean it's based on Newtonian paradigm, and quantum ontology is normally constructed by merely relaxing some hypothetical requirements of classical ontology. And it is to be mentioned that no new requirements are added to classical ontology. Just relaxing some of the requirements in classical ontology. So, we physicists try to understand that from one layer of reality, quantum reality, and can we go to classical world or classical reality? Because as I told you, that if you relax some of the requirements of classical ontology, we can reach quantum ontology. So, can you go from quantum to classical world? Niels Bohr, the father of Copenhagen school, his correspondence principle is one such principle by which you can go from quantum to classical world. Then decoherence and emergence of classicality. These are, decoherence is one of the main topics which we have discussed today. Then fundamental constants of nature. Then comes intrinsic properties or sabhava in Buddhist philosophy, and subtle and gross matter, laws of nature and conservation law. I will just try to explain what is the importance of these kind of things and how we can go from quantum to classical world. In quantum ontology, of course, again you can think of particle and wave ontology. Then, due to the developments of quantum theory and relativity, the quantum field ontology comes. And when people think of quantum field theory, then people think of ontology of tropes. Tropes is nothing but a bundle of properties. And now, let me start with what is the doctrine of two truths in Buddhism. Nagarjuna, the famous Buddhist scholar, already people talked about him. In his famous text, Gulmohar, he talked about two truths. One is conventional truth and one is ultimate truth. And according to conventional truth, this involves our everyday experience and understanding the way the phenomenal world aspects and functions. So this conventional truth is deceptive according to Buddhism, and this deception is called inherent existence and is identified as the root cause of suffering. Again, there is a very important concept in Nagarjuna philosophy called emptiness. So the main message from the concept of emptiness, it says that at the ultimate analysis, the entities don't have their intrinsic property or sabhava. Why I am harping on the concept intrinsic property? Because I am going there. Before that, intrinsic properties, if you open up any textbook in quantum theory, they will start with intrinsic and extrinsic properties of the elementary entities like electrons, protons, neutrons, etc. What do they mean by intrinsic property according to physics? Intrinsic are those qualitative properties that a thing has irrespective of whether or not there are other contingent things. All other qualitative properties are extrinsic or relational. For example, if you take an electron has a rest mass, numerical value is 9.1093 into the minus 31 kilogram. Charge of electron is 4.80 into the minus 10 electrostatic unit. Spin of an electron is half. And electron obeys Fermi statistics, hence known as fermions. Similarly, there are another kind of particles called bosons, like photons or pi mesons, whose spins are either 1, 0, or integral multiple of that, and they obey a statistics called Bose statistics, discovered by Indian physicist H.N. Bose, and we joined with Einstein. The Bose-Einstein statistics was named afterwards. So, according to the textbook of any quantum mechanics, the properties of the electrons, protons, or photons, the light quanta, they have some properties called intrinsic properties. Now let us see whether these are really intrinsic properties in the proper sense or not. Look at the picture, creation of particles in vacuum. You know, the electrons and anti-electrons, that is called positron. Electron is a negative charge and positron has positive charge. They can be created from fluctuations in the vacuum or say photon or gamma quanta, it can generate electrons and positrons. Why I am talking about this? Because the gamma, which is a spin 1, is bosons, and electrons and positrons, they are fermions, they have spin 1/2. So, from gamma or bosons, we are getting the fermions which are different intrinsic spin. So, can we say that these are intrinsic properties? Because if these properties are produced, then conventionally they should not be considered as intrinsic property. Like, proton or pymation here, they collide with the silver or bromide nucleus of the emulsion and produces 6 high energy secondaries. You can produce a lot of elementary particles from interactions. So fermion to boson, boson to fermion. So the question arises whether they are intrinsic properties. Now, the problem is that to have the electrons and protons starting from gamma, we have to follow certain law or conservation law. So there are many such conservation law: conservation of energy, conservation of angular momentum, conservation of charge. Now the question is, if you follow conservation law, then you can produce fermions out of bosons, or you can produce bosons out of fermions. Now the question is, what is exactly meant by conservation law, and what is the philosophical implication of this conservation law? Richard Feynman, I talked in my inaugural session, that famous American physicist Richard Feynman, he thought this conservation law is nothing but a constraint in nature. So, what is the problem? Before that, let me say something, and then I'll go to other procedure by which we can start from quantum world to classical world, or quantum ontology to classical ontology. So if conservation law means some constraint is there, so can we say that it is incompatible with the doctrine of Pratitya Samutpado or dependent originations? Because then how this depends? The property of something depends on something. Then how constraint is coming out from the dependence? This is a problem we are trying to understand. So the constraint in nature, how it is related to the theory of Pratitya Samutpado? To us, this is an open problem. And then correspondence principles. Both Niels Bohr introduced correspondence principle. Roughly, correspondence principle can be categorized into 3 ways. One, those who understood the principle, misunderstood the principle, like Born and Rosenfield. Those who embraced and developed it, Kramers and Handley, and those who seemed to understand it but never mistrust it, like Sommerfeld and Paul. And both believe that classical concepts are indispensable for this description of nature, because these concepts have adapted the way human beings they describe the world. If we want to provide logical rules in common language, or as Born, Heisenberg, Jordan said in their very famous paper, similarity of the new theory with the classical theory also precludes any questions of independent correspondence principle in addition to the theory. Rather, the theory itself can be regarded as the exact formulation of Bose correspondence ideas. Then comes science and language. And this is very, very important. And this becomes more prominent after the discovery or inception of quantum theory. 1955, Niels Bohr wrote, the main point to realize is that all knowledge presents itself with a conceptual framework adapted to account for previous experiences, and that any such frame may prove too narrow to comprehend new experiences. When speaking of a conceptual framework, we refer merely to unambiguous logical representation of relations between experience. Now comes fundamental constants. As I told you, the speed of light, it has a definite numerical value, 3 into 10 to the power 10 centimeter per second. Planck constant, 6.6 into 10 to the minus 26 R, and then gravitational constant. It has also fixed numerical value. So, in nature, we have the several fundamental constants. And if you say that if speed of the light or Planck constant or gravitational constant is slightly different, what would happen? A lot many things might happen. Scientists or physicists, they try to calculate if she has a speed of light is a slightly different value or Planck constant is a different value. Then maybe this type of world where we live, it may not be there. Because the different type of elements which prevail in this present universe may not be present if the value of these fundamental constants be different. So these are observed quantities. And then comes, as I mentioned, subtle matter in modern science and subtle matter in philosophy. This is not at all clear. Nobody has, many people even today they use term subtle matter and gross matter. So what is subtlety and what is grossness? We have a problem. If we take the definition, subtle matter means sensory input plus instrumentations, then even not only elementary particles, elementary entities, but even larger and larger macroscopic objects like quasars, like black holes, neutron star, or smaller level bacteria, they also should be called subtle matter. And in philosophy, normally in Noyan philosophy, they say the sensory input plus experience. Now we have a problem how to understand this experience. Firstly, I think we should have a discussion, detailed discussion, what is matter, then what is gross matter and what is subtle matter. And then comes, Anirban already discussed about quantum teleportations, but there are very important things. Maybe tomorrow, Dr. Atul, he will also talk about quantum teleportation. In quantum teleportation, there are on philosophical debates comes on form and substance. In quantum teleportation, we do not teleport the whole object, only its quantum state, or in Aristotle terms, its form. Is that disappointing? No, not really. We could never teleport mass, energy of an object. Why? Because we should seriously violate the principle that it is impossible to communicate without transmission. In fact, the quantum state constitutes the ultimate structure of matter. When we teleport the quantum state of the object, the original must disappear. Otherwise, we will end up with two copies, and as Anirban already mentioned, and that would contradict no cloning theory. Then comes quantum entanglement, and there is a very interesting debate is going on that quantum entanglement, when we consider two entities are entangled like two electrons, then it is making a relation, but that relation is acausal, and philosophy of relations have been studied by Indian philosophers for many, many centuries. Say, famous grammarian Bhartahari, he has a text called Sambandha Samuddesha, called Exposition of Relation. Then famous Buddhist philosopher Dharmakirti, he studied also the relation, and the name of the book is Sambandha Pariksha, Examination of the Relations. And also there is a scholar called Utpalacharya, his book is Sambandha Siddhi, means proof of relations. And also Jain scholar Prabhachandra, he studied, he showed that how relations can be real. The question is, Dharmakirti, he raised the questions that relations is not real. But in quantum teleportation or quantum entanglement, there is relations which is real in the sense that it has been used in quantum teleportation, which has been experimentally verified. So it opens up another debate on metaphysics of relations and non-locality and quantum entanglement. So, what is the take-home message? If you look at Nagarjuna philosophy and modern science, first thing, the law of nature, like conservation law, how is it connected to Nagarjuna philosophy of dependent originations? Then fundamental constant in nature, how they can be reconciled with Buddhist philosophy. Then correspondence principle, decoherence. Is there any logical procedure from ultimate truth to conventional truth with the Buddhist framework? And finally, why we search for ultimate reality in science and Buddhism? And let me finish my talk with one more slide called empiricism and introspection. So the methodology we use in science called empiricism, and in ancient Indian tradition, they use a methodology called introspections. So in our efforts to unravel this mystery, we have adopted two approaches. One is empiricism, which over a period of time has become the standard and accepted method of science, and other is introspection, which was the method accepted by our ancients thousands of years ago. Sit and meditate, registering in memory all the information gathered by their senses and processed by their mind after consultation and discussions with their peers, and absorbing the esoteric inputs, the scripture triggering their intuitions. Recently, one of our books is in the press with Professor B.B. Kantan, published by Routledge, Taylor and Francis, called Space-Time Causality in Modern Physics and Ancient Indian Tradition. There we discussed more about empiricism and introspection. So my message is there, we are facing some issues in modern physics, in quantum physics, which apparently seems to be incompatible with Buddhist frameworks. So maybe if there is time, it should be open to discussions, and I need opinion from Buddhist scholars. Thank you.
We have about 5 minutes, so exactly 7 minutes. So a couple of questions would be welcome.
Oh, he's there.
Thank you so much, Professor Royji. My question to you is, this morning as well as this afternoon, you said that conservation law and the constants, they are the indication of the constraints. So why do you think so? Why can't it be reality?
No, this is a reality. We are agreeing this is reality, but how it can depend on other things.
So if it is a reality, why do you call it as constraint? Why?
Because we don't understand dependent origin. According to dependent origination.
According to physics.
No, according to physics, this is reality. Now I'm asking how it will be reconciled with the Buddhist concept, Nagarjuna concept of dependent origination. This is my question. This is reality. We are agreed.
So this being reality, you said that this is a constraint here.
Yeah.
So this, when you say that it's a constraint,
Yes.
do you say it's from the point of view of physics or from the point of view of Buddhist philosophy?
From the point of view of physics.
Okay, so why in physics do you call it constraint?
We don't have other language for that.
Constraint is a very specific meaning.
No, we don't.
Constraint is a limitation.
No, yeah. Even law.
Reality, why should
Even if you see, law of nature, law means limitation.
Why?
Because if you say that law of gravitation.
So what's wrong with that? It's
No.
reality.
Yeah, reality, we are expressing reality in our language. Okay, without the language, they cannot communicate with each other.
This is just to add a comment. That is, if you look at it as symmetry and conservation law connection,
Yeah,
that as a consequence of symmetry, a conservation law emerges.
yeah.
So maybe that may
No,
lead to some
other-
other. No, I just wanted to ask you the same. That is, why should be looked at as a constraint? Rather, one can look at conservations as consequence of a symmetry.
Yeah, that you can
we know, but
that you can think of, but still that is a problem. Why that particular symmetry prevails in the universe?
Sir, your so-called constants are relative to what?
Pardon?
Your constants which you have described,
Yeah.
they are relative to what? Gravity constant at Earth is different, at Mars it will be different, at some other planet it will be different.
This is universal constant. This is not dependent on the Earth only.
Have you measured it at Mars and all other planets?
Not yet.
Then when you measure it, then only you can call it constant. Then it's not a constant, it is relative to Earth.
When you say in physics, you should understand the methodology that even when you say law of conservation, we have not seen it for the whole universe, but we are generalizing it. And based on that, we are framing the theory. If somebody says, have you measured it in the beginning of the Big Bang era? No, we have not done, but we are just, extending it. Otherwise, no law can be, no conservation law we have done experimentally for whole universe. No. We did not get any experimental indication up till now that it violates law of conservation of energy. Okay.
These laws, to my mind, they are okay so far as dimensional resistance is concerned.
Yeah.
And later on, when you progress and go to other planets and other, you will be checking them, I'm sure.
Then, of course, then we can think in that way. Let us see, because observation is very important inside.
Buddha has gone much beyond that, and the dependent origination which he has given, it's something which is unique. And that's the way to get rid of your suffering, and...
No, but again, I am questioning you that when you say dependent originations, how far, in what extent you have tested it?
You see, dependent origination is an integral part of emptiness. The so-called emptiness which is a light dimension from where everything arises and everything merges. Nothing has ever risen, nothing has ever disappeared according to him.
Yeah, but message from emptiness says that objects do not have svabhava or intrinsic property. We are discussing that whether the quantum objects have intrinsic properties or svabhava or not. We have a problem in understanding. So that's why I am inviting questions if you can enlighten.
I hope that problem will disappear when you explore other planets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mic is needed here. Oh, okay.
Actually, sir, I think that there are the two schools. There are two schools who have two different answers. Well, that is actually your question is supposing two different things. One is the notion of Pratitya Samutpada or dependent origination, and another is that of unique particular, which you are saying as in respect of quantum physics, you are speaking of unique particulars and that thing. And when you are speaking of unique particulars, the Buddhists who will be admitting this are the realist school. And in that case, we have Gulmohar, who is admitting that these are unique. And in that respect, one solution does not have any connection with any other solution.
Okay.
So they are each of the solutions are unique and they are separated and they do not have any connection. And it is our conceptual construction, with the help of conceptual construction, we try to connect the two. So the relationship exists in the conventional level, and in the ultimate level, there is no real connection between the particulars themselves. This is what Gulmohar says. But in that so far as my knowledge of Gulmohar goes, Gulmohar has not explained anything in terms of pratitya samutpada. He has explained reality in terms of orthokriya karitya, that is causal efficiency to produce a result. But when we read the texts of Nagarjuna, there we have pratitya samutpada, and there Svabhava is determined. Svabhava is said, which is also, Svabhava is something unique to an object, because if anything is dependent for its origination on something else, that is, if its Svabhava comes from the other causes, then we cannot say that the object has its own causes.
Yeah.
So ultimately, both are saying that the unique particulars, they do not have any Svabhava. But the way Nagarjuna is saying and the way Gulmohar is saying are two different.
No, that's true, but I mentioned Gulmohar in the context of philosophy of relations and entanglement.
Yes, in case of Samandha Siddhi, Samandha Pariksha, you have said, and in the Samandha Pariksha, he has shown that there is no relation.
Relation is not real.
But in his logic, he admits two types of relation of causality and relation of identity. So that is different. But the question you raise is, I think it is in two different.
One level
that is conventional level and the ultimate level. Both of them will say that in the ultimate level, when we are knowing the real objects, that real object will be niche of our. It will have.
But in modern physics, it is not so.
But
if we say ultimate level is world of electrons, protons, quarks and other things, they have their intrinsic property.
But in Buddhism, as far as my knowledge goes, they say that it is unique. They do not share anything. And if they don't share, then you cannot say to have any property.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking that what is the opinion? We are facing this problem in physics, and what is the opinion of the Buddhist philosophers?
Okay, so any other questions? Then I think we can declare the session.
Oh, okay.
Okay, with the permission of the chair, let me make a clarification here. So there, the lady professor there, will speak about the uniqueness of the impermanent phenomena, the uniqueness. So there, versus physics talking about the electrons, protons, neutrons having their own specific intrinsic quality. So this intrinsicality that they are talking about, and the uniqueness that which actually Dharmakirti is talking about pertaining to the opposite phenomena, they go very much in parallel. And then in terms of Pratitya Acharya Dharmakirti, of course, he accepts the teachings of the Buddha pertaining to what is known as the 12 links of Pratitya. 12 lanes of medicinal path is not confined to Arani Arjuna. This is something which is accepted by all the Buddhist schools, including Ashtanga. So the point is, what level of dependent origination medicinal path is accepted? That may differ. Ashtanga accepts the first level, whereas Arani Arjuna accepts 3 levels, including the third one, which is very complicated. And then in terms of the sharing the relationship, whether or not the unique identities, they have the relation being shared. So this is something that the Acharya so beautifully classifies the phenomena into 2 categories. One which has the unique characteristics, and the other which is known as imputed phenomena. So the imputed phenomena, they don't have this quality of the uniqueness in terms of the substance, whereas the particles, physical body, whereas the mind, so they have the unique quality. So on that level, on the intrinsic cell characteristics on that level, then the relationship is not accounted for. Relationship is explained only on the imputed level. So it doesn't mean that they don't have a relationship. They have a relationship, but the relationship falls under the other category, which they also have. Okay, thank you. So for sure it was more the explanation. Thank you so much.
No, already they have felicited me.
We would like to thank Professor C.C. Roy for this wonderful session and for his humbleness that he used his time not only to articulate his thoughts and his views, but to open the floor to contribute their views also in this discussion. And that's very generous and very wonderful. Before we conclude this session, I would like to request the very respected Venerable Kabir Saxena ji to please come on the dais and felicitate our speaker and the chairperson for the session. Big round of applause, please. Thank you for the gentlemen. Before we disperse for the day, I would like to announce a quick reminder to the speakers again to kindly submit their papers by the end of this month so that we can publish the program proceedings in the following month. Alright, and the venue will be same tomorrow. It will start at 10 o'clock in the morning. I expect everyone to be there by the time. And please don't forget to bring your badges. That's all for today. Have a great night. Bye-bye.